Good morning. This is the 12th Annual Air Quality and Health Workshop put on by the British Columbia Lung Association, and I am Veda Peters, one of the educators with the Lung Association. And I'm here with Dr. Bert Brunekreef from Utrecht University in the Netherlands. We are going to talk about transportation and public health. So, that being said, in what ways does transportation affect public health?
Well, transportation affects public health in many different ways. You probably need to start by saying that transportation is good for public health in many ways. It gives us the goods that will that support public health. It gives us access to healthcare facilities, a whole lot of things that are important to improve public health. So that's something that should not be forgotten, I think. At the same time, transportation is associated with a number of public health problems. The main things are probably accidents in the first place, traffic accidents. Air pollution is important, noise is important, spread of infectious diseases is important, and then there may be some other things that could affect our health in a bad way.
Are there any more specific links between transportation and public health?
Well, the most direct link is traffic accidents. I would say that there's an almost one-on-one link between what happens in traffic and a bad effect on public health, which affects individuals who get into accidents. There's still more than 1 million people who die every year on the roads in the world, more so in developing countries, middle-income countries, than in the more highly developed countries, which has to do with less awareness of road safety issues, less well-designed roads, traffic systems, etc. So that's the key one. The other thing which is important is air pollution. Most transport is by motorized engines, by engines I should say. Motorized engines is twice the same thing, isn't it? Combustion engines, I should say, that produce pollution to a greater or lesser extent depending on technology and after treatment of the exhaust systems. And especially it's hard, or I should say impossible, to separate people from transport. Transport people, and there's always a closeness between transportation corridors and human beings, either as participants in traffic or living close to busy roads.
So if we see worsening air quality with more combustion engines on the road?
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening. At the same time, technology is changing, so a modern car is far, far less polluting than a car that's 10 or 20 years old. So it's a complex issue. Overall, I would say that in the developed world, air pollution levels from traffic are decreasing, despite increasing traffic. And that's due to the advanced technology that engines use to reduce formation of air pollutants. But it's still very clear that close to busy roads, air pollution concentrations are higher than further away. And it's very clear that people living close to busy roads have more health problems than people living farther away. It's air pollution on the one hand. It's likely that noise plays a role, traffic noise plays a role as well.
And yet they continue to build schools and hospitals next to busy roads because it's easy access.
That's not a good idea. That's right. And I do know that Canada has some policies to locate schools at some distance from busy roads. In countries like mine, the Netherlands, which is very densely populated, you're close to a busy road almost everywhere. But there's also, local fights going on between parents on the one hand, local communities at the other hand, administrators who sometimes want to relocate schools to be closer to busy roads because the land is cheaper close to busy roads and they can sell off the land where the school originally was at a higher price. So those kind of things play a role as well. And that's an area where local communities can actually make a difference by being more cognizant of the risks of being close to traffic, and especially putting young children who are actively running around during playtime and things like that, to put them out of harm's way by locating schools at bigger distances from busy roads. That's something that you can do locally.
Lots of schools have chosen to make their driveways idle-free zones. So that has some effect on air pollution and health of students?
Supposedly it has, although it would be difficult to demonstrate that directly, because it's all relatively small changes in the right direction, but it would be difficult to compare children before and after an idle-free zone has been implemented. So that's, yeah. But even in my own country, which is very cycle-friendly, as you probably know, I'm surprised to see how many parents who live very close to school drop off their kids by car, making the area actually less safe to walk or cycle to school because of all the cars that are in
That's
those
very
areas.
true.
So there's some education needed for the parents as well, I think, and maybe you should be strict about not letting people drop off their kids by car at all unless they live further away than X 100 meters.
Might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So how do we design transportation systems to be healthier?
Well, that's not my specific area of expertise, but improving technology is a big part of it. So making cars cars, buses, trucks less polluting, electrified transport, which of course means the electricity still needs to be generated, but it can be generated at facilities far away from where people live with adequate pollution control. Promoting active transport, so get people out of cars and into public transport, into active modes of transport, cycling, walking. Those are all movements which are going on, and then of course you need to provide safe sidewalks, safe bicycle paths if people choose to do active transport, because it puts them at a higher risk of accidents. May put them at higher risk of air pollution if they have to do their cycling and walking next to very busy roads. So those are all things that can be considered. Designing cities so that they become more walkable, designing cities so that the distances between work and home become less so that they can actually be covered by active transport.
Is it a fantasy to assume that someday in the future the majority of people will use active transport and be healthier than dependent on their cars?
It's not a fantasy. I'm from the city of Utrecht, where the use of cars to transport people is down to 8% of
Really?
all travel, and the rest is public transport, cycling, walking. I have to say immediately that Utrecht is a student town, so a large fraction of the movement is taken up by students who typically do not own cars or want to drive cars in our situation. So they take the bus or take the bicycle or they walk. But it's down to 8% private cars,
That's
the contribution
amazing.
to traffic. So, but it's a compact city, no hills to climb or cycle up to. So that, of course, makes it easier to do that. But technologies like e-bikes have become very popular, at least in my country. Allows people to cycle longer distances. They still need to pedal the bike, so it's not like a scooter. And it allows people to more easily scale hills or go upwind with their cycles. So that's a great perspective, I think, where this bicycles which have a little engine that assists you in the biking make the biking so much more easy and fun to.
With an e-bike, are you generating your own electricity as you pedal?
No. You have it's battery operated, and depending on how much you use the engine, the distance that you can go, maybe 30, 40, 50 kilometers before it needs to be recharged. So you don't know if you would use it to generate energy, it would make the biking actually harder and not easier then. So it's supposed to make biking easier and not harder.
We did see a prototype at a secondary school here where they had designed a bike where you charge the battery by pedaling.
Yeah, that's for folks who have too much energy.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that's not going to be widespread for use.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you very much. Lots to think about.
You're
Lots
welcome.
of good ideas.